It'll always be on their mind.
Right, exactly. That's what, like the mitzvah of tzitzit.
Yes.
You have reminders, wherever you go, you have the tzitzit in front of you. If it's the back of you, you have your mezuzah. It's constant reminders for the people to trying to get the screen here. Morning, Mr. Pateta, I apologize. I missed your call, and I wanted to call you back when I was on a train or whatever. Okay, I'm sorry, apologize.
You know what? Another number that I called. That wasn't you, right?
Yeah, what was?
Maybe that-
Also, if you do me a favor, if you ever call, I don't pick up. Also, text me.
Yeah,
That'll also be helpful. And while you're looking, we'll get out the Gemaras on 28b, 28b2. Yeah, that's not my number. That's not my number. That's not, the only one that's my number. This is the last one. No. Yeah, and also I'll give you my home number. Yeah. Okay, the cell is always the best. The cell is always the best number to call, but it's good to have the home number. Okay, so we have a new piece of Gemara now. 28b2. It's before the Mishnah. It's on the left side. Katan she'ena tzarech le'imo. A child that doesn't need, that not in. No, we said that already. The next piece, Maisa v'yolda kaloto. There was a Maisa, and the daughter-in-law of Beit Shammai had a baby. And when the daughter-in-law of Beit Shammai had a baby, he went ahead and he removed some of the ceiling and he put schach, that the baby should be covered with schach. That was the story of Beit Shammai. Again, we don't require that a person needs to. A baby does not require sukkah. We don't. But Beit Shammai, the opinion was that a baby should be covered in a sukkah. And some explain what's the reason for that law is because just like the sukkah is like your house, and in your house you have your child is in your house, right? And the same way your child's in your house, just you live in your sukkah the way you live the whole year round. So the same way you whole year round the child in your house, so you live in the sukkah also with your child in the sukkah. That's one approach for understanding Beit Shammai's reasoning. The Gemara brought yesterday. That there was a pasuk that says kol, and there was an opinion that says kol comes to include children. And the Gemara yesterday said that was only, and it was alluding to it, but Beit Shammai maybe actually holds that there is this obligation. Some say Beit Shammai's mitzvah of child being in the sukkah. Some understand Beit Shammai on a Torah level, that there's a mitzvah for a child, even a morning Jaime.
Morning.
Even for a baby to be in a sukkah on a Torah level, and some understand that the language of the Gemara is he was machmir, he was strict. That seems to indicate that maybe it was only a rabbinic, it was not a Torah law, but that it was a rabbinic law. So we're now on 28b2 on the right side. So we said Maisa v'yolda kaloto. Morning, Mr. Haber. There was a story that the daughter-in-law of Beit Shammai gave birth to a baby boy, and Beis Shammai went ahead and, like we said, he removed some of the ceiling to enable that, to make sure that the baby boy would be able to be under the roof of a sukkah. So the Gemara asked the question, Maisa Lister, are you seeing a story that's contradictory to what we said before? Because if in the Mishnah had stated that a child that's not in need of his mother is obligated in a sukkah, and a child that's in need of his mother is not obligated in the sukkah. And yesterday, the Gemara identified that means when a child wakes up, if they call their mother once, and then they wait till their mother comes, that's a sign of maturity. That's a child that could have the mitzvah of sukkah. But if they call their mother once, and then they call the mother again, and they keep on calling the mother until the mother comes, that's a sign that the child is not yet independent enough, and that child is not ready to go to the sukkah. He's not ready to go ahead and sleep in the sukkah and to require that type of child to be obligated in the mitzvah of sukkah. That's what we said yesterday. And after the Mishnah stated that the child that needs his mother is exempt from the sukkah, then the Mishnah brings the story of Beis Shammai. The Beis Shammai actually had a child, there was a grandson that needed his mother, he was a little baby, and Beis Shammai actually made sure that he should be in the sukkah. That's a contradiction what you just said. A moment ago you said if a child needs his mother to that level, he's exempt from sukkah. And then you bring a story of Beis Shammai that he obligated him to sukkah. So you don't, if you say a law, if you say a halacha, you don't go ahead and bring a story that contradicts the law, right? Mr. Haber, if you say a law, what would you do? You bring a story that supports the law. So that's the Gemara's question. So the Gemara says, so the Gemara says there was something in the language of the Mishnah. I mean, you have to understand the Mishnah the following. You have to say, the Mishnah goes like this. Shammai machmir. And Shammai was strict. Meaning, the halach, we said the more general opinion was, or the majority opinion, which was Beit Hillel, that a child that needs his mother does not need a sukkah. And then it's as if the Mishnah says, but Beis Shammai disagreed. Beis Shammai was strict, and it showed you how far his strictness went. His strictness went when it was such a young baby, and there was actually a story. Beis Shammai machmir u'maisenami. Not only he was machmir, but we see how he acted on it. He went ahead. His daughter-in-law gave birth to a boy, and he removed some of the plasterwork. Beis Shammai removed some of the plasterwork of the roof that was over the bed. And he went ahead and he put some schach, and he made a sukkah for that minor. And obviously, it had to be an area that was 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim. The minimum size of a sukkah, 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim, was 20-something inches by 20-something inches, with a height of around 31 to 40 inches. That would be and he made such a sukkah. Okay, now we're going to the Mishnah. When Mark comes, I'm gonna address something that Mark asked yesterday. And we'll wait for Mark regarding something that he spoke about yesterday. Kol Shivat Hayamim. Now on the Mishnah. All 7 days, Adam Ose Sukkato Keva Ubeito Arai. All 7 days, you're supposed to make your sukkah. That is your main place. Where's your headquarters? Where's your main place of residence during the holiday of Sukkot? It's in the sukkah. It's not supposed to be that people just go to the sukkah and just go to sukkah to eat. That's not really, we're going to see in the Gemara, that's not really the way to do it. It's not really, you're supposed to go to the sukkah, spend your time in the sukkah, and it's supposed to be your main place. That's your main place. We're going to see how you really are supposed to learn in the sukkah, hang out in the sukkah. That's what the sukkah is supposed to be. Hashem, the mitzvah is Shevat Yamim Teshuvas. You should dwell in the sukkah. The mitzvah is dwell in the sukkah. Dwell in the sukkah means not just to eat in the sukkah. It means that's what it means. Sleeping in the sukkah. Okay, we have certain allowances in certain climates regarding sleeping, but this is your space, your main place. Now, so the Mishnah says, "Kol shivat hayamim adam oseh sukkot keva ubeito aray." You make your sukkah a more permanent place. Your house is more temporary. Now, yordu kshamim. What happens if it rains? So what do you do when it rains? So the Mishnah says, "Me'ematai muta lefanot." At what point, when it rains, that you're allowed to go ahead and leave the sukkah and go into your house? So the Gemara says, "Mishetisrach hamikbah." Then we're going to see the Gemara is going to explain that mikbah is a certain type of bean, type of similar to a soup, like a thick bean soup, and that thick bean soup, if a little bit of water comes on it, it will ruin the soup. And then good morning. So if you have that amount of water that comes onto this bean porridge, and it'll get ruined, that which is not a lot of water, that would be the time that means you're in distress. That means that's called a level of tsar, a level of discomfort that would exempt a person from being in the sukkah. And one of the things, and if you're not sure what that level is, so if there's enough rain, if there'll be a leak in your roof, it'll come in and it'll come onto you. If enough would come in that you would leave your house, that would be a way to recognize that's called that I am. It's a level of distress that will be exempt from the sukkah. Umashlu mashal, and good morning, and they gave him mashal, an example, a parable regarding this phenomenon. If it rains on Sukkot in a climate, and I heard in the name of Rav Hutner that in a climate like Israel, where maybe it's not so common that it should rain at that time, that's a bad sign. Meaning, America, if it rains on Sukkot, it's not really looked at as a real bad sign. On the one hand, we lose out the opportunity to do a mitzvah, which is bad. Not having the opportunity to do a mitzvah is bad, but that it should be a sign of klala, simon klala, that it's a real bad sign is really specifically in a place like Israel. If it rains on Sukkot, that people will not able to fulfill the mitzvah of Sukkah. It's like Hashem saying, you coming to the Sukkah, you want to come to serve, you want to come to do a mitzvah, and I'm throwing you out. I'm not letting you serve me. You're not acting properly good enough that I want you to serve me. So that then the Mishnah illustrates this with a parable. Mashlul mashal, they gave a mashal on rain that comes down during the holiday of Sukkot. Good to see you, Simon. Le'eved shebo limzo kos rabo. A servant is working for the master, and he wants to go ahead and pour a cup of wine or whatever he wants to pour a cup of drink for his master. And what does his master do? He just throws the pitcher on his face. You want to come to serve me? I'm not interested in your service. So when a person comes to the sukkah, it's an interesting language that the Mishnah compares it to an eved. We have to look at ourselves. Halu avdei Hashem, right? We are servants to Hashem. That's how we are supposed to look at ourselves. And that was the greatest title that was given, right, to Moshe Rabbeinu. Vayomat Moshe eved Hashem. He was considered a servant of Hashem. A servant is someone who is not in for himself. I work for someone. We all work for the boss. There's a great book out there. If you didn't read it, I want everyone to read it. It's called All for the Boss. It's called All for the Boss by about a man, a furrier, Mr. Herman, who lived on the Lower East Side. It's a great book. It was very popular about close to 40 years ago. But they made a children's edition. People should. It's a great book. It's called All for the Boss, and that's what we have to be living our life. So it says le'eved shebo limzo kos l'rabo. It's a servant who's coming to pour for his master. V'shofech lo hakiton al panav. And the master just threw the pitcher on his face. I don't want your service. So that is
Rabbi,
the sign. Yes.
is this a principle that we generally believe in, that Hashem speaks to us through nature? The example of, you said, if it rains in Israel, do we believe that?
100%. You're gonna see fascinating Gemaras coming up at the end of the parak, in the next week, that we're going to be learning about how different signs in the world, if there's an eclipse, on the or if the sun, if the power of the sun is covered, how that is diminished. It's a sign. These are signs for the world, signs for the Jewish people. Hashem does things in nature, even like the Gemara says. It says in Halacha, when Hashem makes a thunder, boom. The thunder is a wake up. It's supposed to wake up people up. It's supposed to keep humble people a little bit. You're scared.
So we are supposed to believe in the messages of Hashem through nature.
100%. There's no question. And I think when I said recently, when you see that nature is unpredictable, that in itself is a sign of the hand of God. Because the fact that, how is it so hot in a certain day that in the winter, or whatever, certain days are so hot, that doesn't make sense, because the world is not on autopilot. There's someone that's controlling the nature.
And tragedies as well, Rabbi?
Everything is the hand of Hashem. Now, we might not have an understanding of why there's such tragedy, right? It's hard to, sometimes we don't understand it. Like the last tragedy, it's hard for people to understand. Of course Hashem decreed that it should happen, or else it would not happen. And I personally think, when you see such a tragedy happen, you could say, you know what? Don't you think Hamas could have done tremendous damage a month before, 2 months before, 6 months before? Did anybody think that whether they could have done? My humble opinion, I'm not a politician, and I'm not privy to all the details, but it's hard to believe that they could not have done a certain percentage of damage that they did 6 months before, a year before. It was just that Hashem protected us, that we didn't have this problem like this, the scale. But we lost protection. Obviously, we lost protection, and I think the community has to look at themselves and say, what could we do better to have the protection? That's my personal opinion on the situation. It's a miracle how we were so safe walking around and traveling back and forth in Israel. I think we have to look at that. That's my spin on the matter. We all know we have so many enemies trying to destroy us. They're planning every day, every generation. And the fact that we're here, and the fact that we've been able to accomplish what we've been accomplishing, and it's only the hand of Hashem. We have a man by the name, and not a person who liked the Jewish people, Mark Twain. We know he's a man that did not like Jewish people. He wasn't a Jew lover, and he wrote an essay. It's a very famous essay, and you could Google it, about what's the secret of the Jew. He doesn't understand how all the empires have come and all the empires have gone, and we're here to tell the story. So we're here. So. But by the way, Jaime, we're going to see that the Gemara is going to say that the Jewish people get more punishments than any other nation. We're going to have a Gemara coming up. So this is not, and the reason that's given, we're going to see, is one of the reasons because Hashem wants us to shape up. That's one of the reasons, and therefore he wants us to shape up in this world, and therefore we'll have a beautiful world in the next world. And that's how we have to. Now, there are some things that the Gemara says in Brachot, that sometimes Hashem gives people pains because to give them great rewards, give that person great rewards. It's called Yisurim Shel Ahava, even if the person did not do anything that really was technically deserving of that pain, but it was just because Hashem wanted to give this person great merits. Obviously those are high level people that get such those type of pains. So sometimes it's not always because of that individual's particular sin. But definitely as a community, I would say, when a community gets hit, it's because there's definitely, Hashem is obviously sending messages to the community. If we look at Tanakh, it's always when the Jewish people did the right thing, things were good. They were successful against enemies and things were good. When the Jewish people were not doing what they were supposed to be doing, That's when the enemy had power over them. I mean, that's really going to be the story with the Yitzchak is going to give the bracha to Yaakov. He's going to say, it's up to you. When as long as the Jewish people are doing the right thing, we'll be on top. If we're not doing the right thing, we're not on top. Obviously, we're in Galut, we're in exile. Even though it's comfortable here in America, and it's been comfortable, it's not as comfortable. No, it's not as comfortable as it used to be. That's a big part of the big problem. But at the end of the day, maybe people forget that we are in Galut. There is no, Mashiach is not here. We are still in exile. It's been recently maybe one of the most, the better exiles, correct, Mr. Haver? The last, in America, has been a place that's been a place, a very, an exile from the best exiles of the Jewish community.
Not getting better every day. It's looking worse every day in exile.
Right, right. So that exile is looking worse, and maybe it's time that people are going to be remembering that we're in exile. We got to think about coming back to Israel. Think more about Israel. Think about more about, where our real home is. There was a great Hasidic Rebbe. He was called the Ostrowski Rebbe. He lived in Poland in the 1920s, and when they asked him, "Where is your home?" "My home is in Israel, but I'm now here in this town in Poland." That was his mindset. So he, that mindset that maybe people are going, when people are living in America, some people are living in a way as if they're not thinking about Israel or Eretz Israel and Mashiach. That's a problem. We gotta remember we're in Golut, and hopefully it'll get easier and get better. So we gotta pray. Okay, so the Gemara says, back to the Mishnah. So that was the story. Hashem is using nature, as you said, to send a sign to the Jewish community that I'm not happy with you, and I don't want to give you the opportunity to do the mitzvah because you're not deserving to do the mitzvah. Tana Rabbanan. Now the Gemara says a little bit, elaborate in the Breita of what does it mean. We said the Mishnah stated that all 7 days your Sukkah is supposed to be your main place of residence, and your house is supposed to be temporary. So listen to this Gemara, which I think is very, very important to put into practice throughout the holiday of Sukkot, because this is also brought down in the Shulchan Aruch. Tana Rabbanan, Kol Shivat Yamim. You see the word Kol, there's a little bet. The little bet takes you to the Ein Mishpat Ner Mitzvah on the right top column, where he shows you where it's found in the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch and in the Smag. So this is going to be quoted in the Shulchan Aruch. All 7 days, Adam oseh sukkoto keva. All 7 days, you make the sukkah your permanent place. Ubeito arai. Your house is supposed to be your temporary residence. Ketzad. Hayulo kelim naim. You have nice utensils to use for the holiday. You have nice utensils in your house. What do you do with those nice utensils? You leave your nice utensils in the house, meaning, let's say you have nice dishes, nice silverware. Do you use the nice dishes and silverware in the sukkah? Really, it sounds like from the Gemara that you should take your nice dishes, right, Mr. Haber, and your nice silverware and use it in the sukkah. Like on Pesach, we go ahead and we have our nicest stuff in Pesach. Pesach is the highest level of showing our freedom. But even over here, it's not that people are supposed to, take you have nice utensils. Malan the sukkah, you bring it into the sukkah. I mean, listen, so maybe for many women, maybe it's easier to buy nice, beautiful, plasticware. Okay, but that type of plasticware, maybe they would use in the house also if they want in certain type of situations. But you're supposed to, and you bring that nice stuff to the sukkah. Matzot no, you have nice linen. Take the nice linen, because again, they're sleeping in the sukkah. Take your nice linen, and what should you do with it? Bring it into the sukkah. Malan the sukkah. It's not like you're camping out somewhere, and you're camping out. You don't take your nicest linen. You're camping out. You don't take your nice dishes. You're not camping out. Sukkot is not a camping out situation. This is your house. It's not a camping. You have to make it like your house. Ochel v'shoteh. You eat, you drink. U'mitayel b'sukkah. So mitayel, many understand is you hang out. You spend your time in the sukkah. That's what you're supposed to do. You have conversation. You want to talk to people. You have a conversation in the sukkah. Spend your time in the sukkah. Just being in the sukkah is a mitzvah just to spend time in the sukkah. Because that's like it. Don't you do that in your house? You hang out in your house. You spend time in your house, right? That's what you do in your house, right? You don't just come into your house and you leave your house and you only come in to eat, to drink, and to sleep. You spend time. Unless you're an investment banker. If you're an investment banker, you don't spend any time in your house. Okay, maybe that. We don't recommend. I have a lot of students, and we tell them investment bank got to be very careful. That type of profession is not a good profession for family life. You got to be careful. That type of. We don't suggest it. And I have one of the men here at the class. Adam is shaking his head. He is saying, yes, Rabbi, you are 100% correct. I told the guy yesterday. I said, you know what? I told the member of the community here. I was learning with him in Safra. I said, he's in Fordham University. I said, you don't think God could give you parnasa without being an investment banker? You think the only way you're going to get money is you have to go into work at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning and come home 11:30, 12 o'clock at night? That's the only way God could give you money? And he agreed with me. Yeah, Rabbi, I'm working investment banking. I am a slave. The money is good, but I'm a slave. That's what he said. I am a slave. That is what he said. Okay. Menahani Mile. So the Gemara says, where is the source that you have to go ahead and spend the time, spend this time in the sukkah, the way we said you spend the time. So now the Gemara says, the Tana Rabbanan, meaning the first Braita did not give us a source for the halacha. Adam, if you want to check the computer here for a second, the Braita did not give us a source. It just stated the halacha, right? It said halacha, you make your sukkah, this is preparing live stream. It just says you make your sukkah your main residence. But where's the source for that? How do you know that you have to make your sukkah the main residence, right? So the Gemara says, the Tana Rabbanan, we have a Braita. It says in the Torah, Teishvu, on the sukkah you should dwell. And Teishvu means Ke'en Shetaduru. You have to dwell the way you dwell in your house. That's what the word Teishvu means. Mikan Amru, from this pasuk we learn out, Kol Shivata Yamim, Osa Adam Sukkoto Keva, the whole 7 days, you make your sukkah Keva, Ubeito Arai, in your house temporary, Ketzad. And he says the same thing we said before, but it's going to add one point. It says, you have beautiful utensils, Malam Sukkah, bring them to the Sukkah. Matzos, no, if you have nice linen, Malam Sukkah, bring it to the Sukkah. Ochel v'shoteh u'metayel b'Sukkah, you eat, you drink, you spend time in the Sukkah, you hang out in the Sukkah, and mishanein b'Sukkah. Here's a new point that we did not say before. You learn. Mishanein is from the language vishinantam levanecha. You teach your son, Shanantam is that you should be sharp. You sharpen yourself in the Sukkah. You learn. You sharpen your knowledge of Torah in the Sukkah. So the Gemara is going to question this last point. The last point that we said that you're supposed to learn in the Sukkah, the Gemara says, but we have Rava. Rava is a later rabbi, but he says the opposite. He says, look what he says. He says it depends. He says, Rava, he says about certain, we're going to see there's different types of learning. There's learning Chumash, there's learning Psukim, then there's learning what we're learning Gemara, more in depth, back and forth, questions, answers, reasons. So, Mishanein b'Sukkah, the Gemara's understanding that Mishanein means going in depth with explanation and reasons in the Sukkah. Aini, is that so? V'amar Rava says, Mikra u'mitna b'mitaltala. If you're learning Chumash, you're learning Tanakh, you're reading Psukim, you're reviewing the Parsha by the Shnayim Mikra, that's what you're supposed to do morning. You should do it b'mitaltala. That's what you do in the Sukkah. But you're learning Mishnah in the Sukkah. The Mishnah, because those are already facts that are stated, that are given. But if you're going to go in depth, it's nuyeh. But if you're going ahead and learn, if you're going in depth, you bar metaltala. If you want, you could, if you want, you don't need to have the morning errand. You don't have to learn the Gemara in the Sukkah, because you might need, because of the nature of the learning, it's more in depth. You might need a little bit more space, a little bit more better area. And the Sukkah is generally it's a more smaller area. You might not have as much, your mind, you're not at ease as much. You need a little bit more, the better conditions. So, sometimes when you want to concentrate on something, right? Having a little better air, better, it's more spacious area. It's a little bit easier. Maybe the air is better, in a more larger area than in a more condensed area. So then you would say bar metaltala. You could go ahead and you could learn. You want to learn the Gemara, learn it out. You can learn it outside the Sukkah, because you need a little bit more clarity of mind in order for that, right? What are they translated over here? On the bottom, they say, okay, but that is the point. Being in a better, more spacious area gives you makes it easier for you to concentrate. So the Gemara, just like the Gemara says, sometimes a person has when you live in an apartment that's a little nicer than a different apartment, it gives you a little bit more, it gives you more relaxation or more clarity of mind. Doesn't mean you have to live in a palace, you know what I'm saying? But if you're living in a 2x2, remember, a sukkah could be very small, right? Sukkah could be 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim. We're talking about a sukkah could be 7 tvachim. It could be a little over 2 feet or something by 2 feet. That's how small a sukkah could be. Obviously, people, like what's the size of a sukkah? You could fit most of your body in a table. Your head, your body, and a table. It's a very small and a table. We're not talking about these 8-foot tables. You know what I mean? It's a little table that like they most probably, like you see in the in the hospitals, that everyone has that little table, so where they eat on. So it's a very small area. So therefore, when you want to go in depth, it's easier for you to concentrate when you have a little bit more space. I'm afraid today people overdo it on how much space they have. But the Gemara says lo kasha. So the Gemara's contradiction is, you said mishanein in the Gemara understood mishanein means you could go in the Sukkah, you even have to go in depth. You're learning, even if you're learning intense, it has to be in depth, it has to be in the Sukkah. And this says, and Rava says, no, if you're learning in depth with reasons and back and forth, it doesn't have to be in the Sukkah. So the Gemara says, lo kasha, it depends. Habi migras, habi yunei. It depends if something is something that you already learned before. Let's say you learned the Gemara, and you know what the Gemara said already. Then that's something you should do in the Sukkah, because you already know what the Gemara said. You're reviewing what you already know. But if you didn't really yet learn the Gemara yet, you didn't really yet come up with the answers and the reasons, and that would have to be that's outside the Sukkah. You have a right to, because you have more. We call it the Yishuv Hadat. Your mind is more settled when you're in a little nicer, more area location. And the Gemara illustrates this, as we found. Kiha is the different. The Gemara's going to show you the different types of learning. Kiha now on Chavtet Amar Aleph 29a. Kiha the Rava v'Rami Bar Chama. Rava and Ram Bar Chama. Kihavi kaimei mekamed Rav Chizda. When they would go in front of Rav Chizda, and Rav Chizda gave a lesson, and he taught them laws of different laws, and what they did was they mirahati b'gemara b'hadi adadi. After they heard the class, they reviewed the class, they repeated together what the rabbi said. What the rabbi said was permitted, what the rabbi said was forbidden. And then after they went ahead and they reviewed what the rabbi said, the basic laws that the rabbi said, then they went into depth. What's the reason behind what the rabbi said? And that requires, when you're more analyzing something, that requires much more clarity of mind and the conditions that you're in, the physical conditions. If you're in a very tight space or a very nicer space, a little larger space, affects the way you're able to concentrate on that material that you are learning, and therefore that then you could do outside the sukkah. And I think generally we say, if someone will ask, should I learn in the sukkah or not learn in the sukkah? So it depends. Where are you going to have better learning? That's how I generally would say. If you're going to learn better outside the sukkah, because in the sukkah there are other people coming in back and forth, and maybe they're going to make it difficult for you to learn over there, or just the conditions of the sukkah are not as comfortable as learning in the Beit Midrash or in the house. So I would say that better have a better learning. Then it would be. It would seem that, like similar to our Gemara. The Gemara says that if you'll have more when you need more concentration for the type of learning you're doing, so then do that outside the sukkah. But it's clear from the Gemara that if you would be able to equally, you're able to learn properly in the sukkah, so then you should go ahead and the person should find himself learning on Sukkot in the sukkah. That's what he's supposed to be doing. So, maybe we'll take out the Shulchan Aruch and we'll see what he says on this halacha. So he says in the halacha, he says about you should bring your nice utensils, your nice linen to the sukkah. And then he says you eat, you drink in the sukkah. Then let's see where he's going to talk about the learning. The learning is in Sif Dalet. In Sif Dalet, he says about the learning, all 7 days you read in the sukkah, meaning you read Chumash in the sukkah. But when you're trying to analyze what and be very analytical in what you're learning, then outside the sukkah, the Shulchan Aruch says. Why? Because you need more. If you need your mind to be more at ease and if the environment becoming outside the sukkah would be easier for you, then you go ahead and you do it outside the sukkah. It's interesting that he talks about hamispalel. A person davening. He talks about davening if you want to daven in the sukkah or out of the sukkah. But I think in the Yalkut Yosef by Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, I think he says over there it's better to have the minyan in the shul. I think he says better have the minyan in the shul than davening in the sukkah. That's something that people ask that question about. If you have a shul minyan, I think in general, people should realize there's something special and unique about going to a shul. A lot of people, I don't think, remember the uniqueness and the greatness and the holiness of a shul. So it's nice that people have a house and people go ahead and they have a minyan in the house. I think people need to think about this fact that you're missing out on davening in a shul. So
how about Abaye?
What'd you say?
Abaye.
Remind me about Abaye when he.
Abaye would pray where he learned.
Oh yeah, okay. If you pray where you okay. Maybe you're Abaye. I'm not.
Did I say I didn't say that.
But you have to be on that high level. Okay, maybe no problem. We'll look at the Yalkut Yosef tomorrow. I don't want people to be late. I want to wish everyone a beautiful day. All the best. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.